On October 18th, Funimation announced that it will no longer be in cahoots with Crunchyroll. For those of you who don't know, the two companies had a deal going back about 2 years now that allowed for both companies to share the same shows. Typically, the sub version would be out on Crunchyroll, while the dub would mostly be promoted on Funimation. Occasionally, you'd see some subs on Funimation and some dubs on Crunchyroll, but for the most part, this is the basic gist of it, and everyone was pretty much okay with it. However, some very big people were not okay with it, that being predominantly Funimation's new boss and parent company, Sony, who apparently wants to turn Funimation into a global brand. And, well, Crunchyroll, being owned by AT&T, who is also trying to get their hands on Time Warner at the moment, is a direct competitor, so, well, the two really couldn't stick around. I'll leave a link below to the full Variety article if you want to see it for yourselves. It's very interesting, and this topic does bring up a lot of questions for the anime community that I kind of want to throw my 2 cents into, and so from here we're getting mostly into opinion stuff. So first up, what does this mean for the anime community in the long term? First and foremost on this subject, don't do anything tomorrow. Like, no one do a mass leaving of one site, trying to get onto the other. Don't. The deal doesn't go out till November, and I'm pretty certain this won't affect any simulcasts until January or December, or whenever the winter season begins, and it's time for new shows to come out. Everything will continue as it is for now. So, yeah, pretty much just kind of keep doing what you're doing. However, this might be a big deal for people who have Verve, as Funimation is now leaving Verve and being replaced with HIDIVE. First up, kudos on Verve for getting a replacement so quickly. HIDIVE is a new anime streaming service, or at least newer, that is really trying to make a big stake, and they seem to be going after quality shows, so that's pretty neat. Yeah, and also they're a bit cheaper than the rest, so they're already making a big splash in the market, which is good. As for what this means for the industry, and what I kind of like is, I think in the long term, this is a good thing. One of the problems with anime streaming is that there's not really the competition there needs to be for a healthy marketplace. It's pretty much Crunchyroll or nothing. Now, some of you may say that, well, there's Netflix, and there's Amazon, and there's Hulu. Well, Hulu barely licenses anything. They just kind of have Tokyo Ghoul, and I'm pretty certain that's about it. As for the other two put themselves in so many awkward situations. Essentially, all three of these streaming giants are basically in their own unique bubbles. Amazon elected to have a double paywall in the form of Anime Strike. Then when they gave up on Anime Strike, they seem to have been having trouble really keeping up and sort of like really establishing a foothold as to what they want. I, for a while there, was assuming that the direction they were going in was to basically be the people who have the more adult stuff. Like, for a while there, we were seeing their licenses being things like Banana Fish, frickin' Happy Sugar Life, Grand Blue Fantasy. I know I'm not saying that name right, but I'm not looking it up. I don't care. So I was hoping that they would be the ones going more into the adult market, but then I see arguably the most adult-oriented show of the season, Goblin Slayer, going to Crunchyroll, and it looked like Amazon didn't really go after anything that really on brand. So, yeah, they're still sort of sorting out how they want to do things. Then you have Netflix, whose logic is to basically hold shows hostage, at least as far as the US is concerned. Violet Evergarden, I'm pretty certain, was simulcasted weekly in most English-speaking territories, except for, this one. So their logic is to hold off on shows, some for even 6 months, even when that show is supposed to be their baby, and then release everything at once. Yeah, I have my issues with Netflix's whole big, frickin' binge watch everything bullshit, but that's a discussion for another day. So what I'm hoping is that if Funimation is trying to be direct competition for Crunchyroll, this is going to be good for all consumers. Crunchyroll has no real competition, as we've just established. So because of this, Crunchyroll can have a lot of the problems it has, like issues with their player, or like issues with starting shows at the right moment, or just stuff like that that really shouldn't be the case, but why should they have to improve when there's really no one to go up against? So seeing these two sort of have to go head-to-head and really try and compete for your dollar is always good for the consumer as a whole. The more competition, the better. Now, if those other idiots could get their act together, we'd have a seriously good marketplace. So all in all, I think this is good in the long run. However, I do wonder what this is going to mean for what anime means for the larger society. Sony wants to make a big push, so what does that really mean? Like, Funimation is already probably the biggest and most popular dubbing company on Earth, at least as far as the stuff they have licensed. Obviously, they have DBZ, Attack on Titan, My Hero Academia, but I can't help but feel that part of the reason they got the shows they have is because they were working with Crunchyroll, who really does a lot to definitely get the shows and like really make the companies feel at ease when they license their stuff. I don't necessarily know what Funimation's relationship will be with these new companies now that they have to sort of do everything on their own. However, having a Japanese-based parent company like Sony might prove to have some way going on in the future. So all in all, I think that this is good in the long run. I think it's going to be a headache when it comes time to really decide what streaming services you want, but ultimately you should pick what you want because it has the stuff you want and because you agree with the company on some level. I personally have Crunchyroll and Netflix. For me, that's enough considering I don't really have a lot of TV time anyways. But if you would rather have Hulu because it has a lot of the stuff you like, that is the decision to make. I went after Netflix because of the Marvel Netflix stuff, which granted is kind of going in a bad direction. And I went after Crunchyroll because it licensed Yu-Gi-Oh! And I wanted to show my support for that. So all in all, you have to pick what works best for you. Do not let feelings of loyalty or anything like that to a company matter to you. But that's what I think. So in the comment section below, give me your thoughts on what's going on. If you think it'll be good in the long term, if you think there are some bad things that happen because of it, and tell me all that below. And as always, click to like, click to subscribe, and join us next time in case we hear more stuff that Sony's doing to make my life harder.